We're going to get and replace our front brake pads and rotors located right behind your front wheels. Using our 22mm socket, let's loosen and remove our lug nuts. Go ahead and remove your wheel, set that aside. We're going to go ahead, loosen and remove the two brake caliper bolts. We're going to use our 17mm socket, loosen and remove the two brake caliper slide pin bolts. Set those bolts aside. And on the top here, we have our brake bleeder screw. If yours has a little rubber cap on there, go ahead and just pop off that rubber boot. And pull off our rubber boot to expose our brake bleeder screw there. I'm going to use our 10mm socket here. Go ahead and loosen this. What I'm going to do is just watch for a bit of brake fluid to start seeping out of this. There we go. Good, snug that. Just enough to keep that from leaking. So at that point there, let's go ahead and give this a quick wipe down. We'll be coming back to this in a little bit. Go ahead and use your pry tool. Work your caliper off. And go ahead and use our hanger to support up our caliper. Keep that up and out of the way. You don't want this caliper to hang down and add pressure to this flex hose. You can damage this. Let's go ahead and remove our brake pads. Just pop those out. You want to pay attention to the inboard pad. It has the wear squeak tab on the lower portion. We're going to remove our two 19mm caliper bracket bolts. We're using our deep socket and our breaker bar. And when you remove the upper bolt, the caliper bracket will be loose. And if your rotor is free floating, be careful. You don't want that to drop off the wheel hub and land on your foot. Remove that bolt. Remove your caliper bracket. You may have two Phillips head screws holding the rotor to the face of the hub. These are not the original rotors. Those screws have been probably removed and long gone. So at this point here, we should be able to just tap the back side of the rotor. Ours is rusted to the hub. Once that's free, grab that rotor, work it off. Before installing your brake rotor, you want to go ahead and clean up around this hub face. Get any rusty nuggets or anything off of this here, because you want that brake rotor to fit on nice and smooth and level. You can use a wire brush here like we're doing and just clean up all around here. It's always a good choice to go ahead and wear safety glasses and a face mask when you're dealing with rust and brake dust like this. Once you have the hub face clean, now's the perfect time to go ahead and put some anti-seize compound around here. That way the brake rotor won't stick to this hub again. I'm going to go ahead and install our rotor here, and you want to pay attention to the dimpled side of our rotor here. That should line up if you have the factory screws that are going in there. Let's position this, line this up, and put our rotor on. Now if you have your screws here, go ahead and install those now. Let's go ahead and disassemble our brake caliper bracket. Let's move our sliders here. Going to use your pry tool. Pop these up and off. Repeat for the other side. Your next step, remove your slider pins. Peel back the boot. And be careful not to tear these. And go ahead and remove your pins. Repeat for the other side. You want to pay attention to which pin goes where. This one here has our rubber seal on there. The other side does not. You want to go ahead and inspect the boots here. If they're in good condition, we're going to gently peel those out like so. Do the same for the other side. Now you want to go ahead and clean these here. We're going to put some solvent in here. We're going to use our bore brush. I want to go inside and just clean this up. What we're doing is we're cleaning out any residual grease, anything like that that might be in there. I'm going to flush this out. Wipe it down. I'm going to repeat this process for the other side. Clean your slider pins. You want to get rid of any of the old grease. You want to inspect these here, make sure that this rubber seal is in good condition. Check for any rust, scoring, any damage like that to these slider pins. Ours appear to be in excellent condition. Repeat for the other side. You want to use your wire brush and clean up where the pad shims go. You want to get any rust buildup that's on there, get that off. Sometimes you have to use a file or something to knock down the big, heavy, rusty pieces. Go ahead and repeat for the other side. Going to install your rubber boots. Those will snap into place. Then you want to go ahead and apply some new grease to your pin and put some inside the boot as well. Now you don't want a huge amount of grease on this here. You basically just want a light coating of lubrication on here to help that pin slide back and forth. Install the pin, push it down, pop the boot on, work that around to working perfect. Repeat for the other side. Now if you're pushing in on your slider pin and it is automatically pushing it way out like this here, you put too much grease on it. So you want to go ahead and remove some of that grease and reinstall it. I'm going to install our new pad sliders. Just a thin coat of grease. We don't want big nuggets of anything coming off. Press these down into place. Repeat for the other side. Make sure those are fully seated. You're gonna line up your caliper bracket. Let's get one of your bolts started here. And go ahead and get your other bolt lined up and get that started. Go ahead and snug those down. Install your inboard pad with the squeak tab at the bottom. Install the outboard pad. So at this point here, let's pull this off the hanger. What we want to do is we want to compress these two pistons back up into our caliper. So there's going to be a two-step process here. We want to open up our bleeder screw here, and that's why we broke it free a little bit earlier. That way there we had the stability of the caliper attached to the bracket. So we're going to crack this open. We're going to install our tool to compress our piston here, or our two pistons. Fluid is going to come out, and then we're going to tighten this back down. So I'm just going to get our tool set up in place here first. I'm going to put some slight pressure on that just to hold the tool. Crack this open. Now you want to have your catch can underneath. And we're going to slowly squeeze this here, and you're going to see fluid coming out. You're going to do this until both pistons are completely compressed inside the caliper. Once those are completely recessed, you can go ahead and tighten down that bleeder screw and just snug it. Wipe down some of the residual fluid here. I'm going to go ahead and release our tool. You can see both pistons are completely recessed inside. Set our caliper aside up top here. Install your anti-rattle pins here on our brake pads. They go into the little pins or the little holes on our pads there. There's going to be one on the bottom, one on the top. With those in place, go ahead and grab your brake caliper. So wing this down and slide the caliper over your brake pads. Let's go ahead and start your caliper bolts into our caliper bracket. Let's go ahead and tighten these down. I'm just going to use some solvent here. Clean off our caliper for any of that residual brake fluid. We're going to torque down our caliper bracket bolts here to 100 foot-pounds. Our slide pin bolts are going to be tightened to 53 foot-pounds. At this point here, if you have your rubber boot for the bleeder screw, go ahead and pop that on. Once you get this bleeder screw cap back on, you want to go ahead and hop into the vehicle. You want to pump up the brakes and get these pistons to compress the brake pads up against the rotor. Otherwise, the first 2 to 3, maybe even 4 pumps of that brake pedal, it's going to go to the floor. You want to go ahead and pump up that brake pedal, make sure it's nice and firm. At that point there, we'll go ahead and install our wheel. Go ahead and install your wheel. Go ahead and install your lug nuts. Once we get these installed, we're going to snug them up, and then we'll go ahead and torque them down. Let's go ahead and torque our lug nuts down to 95 foot-pounds.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.